Happy Wednesday, guys. Here to talk to you about the differences between toning and bulking. So I've had a couple of clients come forward and say, I don't know the difference, please explain them to me. So I've decided to do this video for you. Part one is going to be talking about some of the myths and misconceptions behind how you guys probably understand these two terms. And clip number two is going to be how you can practically apply this into your training program. So guys, let's just establish first of all what these terms actually mean. And let's have a little disclosure to start with, because these terms aren't actually thrown around by fitness professionals. I don't use them in PT. I don't know PTs that usually do. That's not how we design programs. It's just terms that you guys understand and ask for in terms of body composition results. So let's dive into them. So number one is toning. So what does this mean? It means to lower body fat percentage to expose muscle definition. And then bulking, number two, means to increase muscle size overall and to maybe drop body fat percentage after that. So basically, these different outcomes come from the same principle of strengthening and defining muscles. But it's never as simple as do this and do this and do this to increase muscle size, or do this to do, to drop body fat. It's a combination of a couple of different variables, and I'll talk about how we can practically implement this in video number two, so stay tuned. So let's dive into maybe some of the misconceptions and some of the false facts about toning and bulking so that you guys can further understand what these two terms actually mean. All right, myth number one, lifting lighter weights will tone, whereas lifting heavier weights will bulk. This is just simply not true. So when you think of lifting anything, you need to think about it actually as applying stimulus to the body, okay? And so when we apply certain kinds of stimulus, our body is forced to adapt. So to build strength and build muscle definition, essentially what the stimulus does is it creates these little tears within your muscle fibers, and it's the repairing of this that builds the strength and definition. So when you think about lifting heavier weights, you don't have to lift heavier weights as much to receive a large amount of stimulus, whereas if you were to lift lighter weights, you'd have to lift them a lot more to receive that large amount of stimulus. So it's not about the weight, it's about the right kind of stimulus. All right, guys, talking about myth number two, high reps, low weight will tone, whereas low reps, high weight will bulk. So this idea changes depending on who you talk to, especially in the fitness industry. So I'm just going to give you my opinion about what's worked for me and my clients. So when you think about my last point that I just made about the right kind of stimulus, you can also intertwine that into what muscle groups you're actually trying to target. So big muscle groups, for instance, like your glutes, your legs, your back, your lats, these require quite a large amount of stimulus, and they recover relatively slowly. So when you train these kind of muscle groups, you want to train them quite heavy, have ample rest to get the best stimulus possible out of this particular muscle group. Whereas with smaller muscle groups, such as your arms and your calves and your stabilizers, etc., they've got really good endurance, so they can actually withstand larger amount of reps, relative obviously to the weight ranges that you're using, and you can usually do like supersets with these sort of muscles as well. So and this is how you impact them with a large amount of stimulus in a way that they're going to respond to. So guys, it's not high reps, low weight equals tone. It's not low weight, I can't even say it, low reps, high weights equal bulk. It's about applying the right kind of stimulus to the muscle groups you're trying to target, and then it actually ties into how many calories you're eating. So if you're in a surplus, you're probably going to put on size, whereas if you're sitting around your calorie base and just underneath, you're going to probably drop a little bit more body fat. All right, guys, so talking about point or myth number three, building muscle and bulking is the same, and hence why I don't do strength training. This is usually what people say to us. So bulking is essentially putting on size, okay? And bodybuilders usually get a pretty bad rap, but to be honest, they spend hours and hours and hours training their bodies to put on large amounts of size. the stage. So it's not only the large amount of training they do, it's also the large amount of food that they're actually eating. And I think that women bodybuilders in general, they don't get enough appreciation for how difficult it is to actually put on size as a woman, because naturally we have lower testosterone levels than men. So testosterone does impact your body's ability to grow muscle. Which means that, you know, we have other hormones that produce different results, you know, for like fertility and whatnot, but we're not actually designed to put on a lot of size. So if your goal is to bulk up, which, you know, for the athlete out there, definitely could be a goal of yours. So essentially what you'll need to do is you'll need to train quite heavily, and I don't mean heavy weights, I mean heavily as in train quite frequently and high intensity. And you'll need to sleep a lot, eat a lot, and make sure that you're not skipping meals essentially throughout the day as well. So, and when I'm talking about eating a lot, I'm talking about being in a calorie surplus. So if you want to know how much that is, there's lots of calculators online. You can just punch in your daily exercise expenditure, your food intake, etc., and it will spit out a number that will show you your base and to put on size how many more calories you'll need to be eating. So with that being said, strength training or weight training doesn't actually bulk you up, but it does play an important factor into the stimulus part of producing the growth in the body. So the strength training will build strength in the muscle, but it's actually the amount of fatigue or stimulus you put into that muscle that will make it grow. So when you think about strength training as well, I think people get a bit scared, like I said, because they think they're going to bulk up, but and they'll probably divert to things like cardio because they think that cardio is going to drop a lot more body fat and get them leaner faster. But when you think of strength training, what it does is it actually produces a high EPOC. So we call this as an excess post-exercise oxygen consumption. It's a bit of a mouthful. And what this basically means is that after you finish exercising, your metabolism actually is boosted from that initial stimulus because you're having to take in a lot more oxygen following this strenuous activity, and it means that your metabolism will be boosted for up to 36 hours after you finish training, depending on the training intensity, of course. So for ladies wanting to burn body fat, you're actually better off doing strength training because of its benefits after you've stopped training, whereas with cardio, you do cardio, you burn calories. As soon as you stop doing the cardio, you stop burning calories. So that's a myth. That is one of the misconceptions about this myth being busted. All right, guys, talking about myth number 4. So men and women should lift weights differently. So this one is a little bit controversial. I think that a lot of feminists out there are going to get a bit snarky about probably some of the points I'm going to make here. It's not to tick anyone off. This is just physiologically the facts, and I'm here to decide and decipher to you guys how to achieve your goals. So with that being said, males are actually physiologically built different from women. So they're a lot bigger, they have a lot more testosterone, they're designed to put on a lot more size, they are stronger relatively to females. So for a good squat for a guy, they should be able to lift at least 2.5 times their body weight, whereas for a female, 2 times is like more than ample. It's like really good for a female to be able to do that. But when you also think about males, they actually have less endurance than women do. So when women train, we're able to just keep going, go. So if you're ever in a HIIT class and you turn around and you see guys usually dying, that's because they're actually built to have a large amount of output quickly, but then have to rest for a long period of time. Whereas with women, we can kind of just have this middle tier output and just keep going and going and going. So with that being said, we can actually implement this into how we train, specifically for females wanting to tone up or to bulk up. So when you think about lifting weights, don't think about I'm a female, therefore I should lift lighter weights. It should be how is it relative to your body weight, your strength levels, the type of training you're doing, the exercise selection you're doing, and also how much rest you're giving yourself. So are you doing more of a circuit style training program, or are you doing more strength focused, or it all impacts on the type of weights and the amount of weights that you need to use whilst lifting. So, like I mentioned to you guys before, lifting lighter weights doesn't necessarily mean you'll tone, but if you think about if you're training and you are doing it and you're not actually feeling anything, so you're not actually getting tired from it or feeling the effects of fatigue in the muscles, it's probably because you're not actually training them hard enough. So maybe reconsider the rep ranges or the amount of weight you're using or the tempos, the time under tension you're putting under these muscle groups, to obviously get that right stimulus to produce that growth or that muscle strength that you're after. All right, guys, so talking about myth number 5, which is how to build lean, long muscles. So there's a lot of talk in lots of different fitness magazines all throughout the internet about, creating these lovely, long, lean muscles, in sports like yoga or Pilates will help you do that. But let's just have a little dive into what this actually means. So those particular exercises or sports, you can call them sports, they're really good at increasing flexibility within the muscles. So if you can imagine what the muscles look like, you can type it into Google and have a look at the anatomy of a human being. Muscles are actually attached to a bone. So you can't actually lengthen muscles with exercise, but what you can do is you can increase flexibility. So, and for instance, like in a forward bend, in yoga, if anybody does yoga, for those people who have a lot of flexibility, they'll be able to touch their toes, whereas for people that are a little bit more immobile, a little bit less flexible, they probably, might not even come close to doing that. So that doesn't mean that those people who are more flexible are stronger or they have more defined muscles. It just means they've got more flexibility within the range of their muscles and joints. So with that being said, if you are wanting to improve muscle definition or get muscle growth, then you need to have a combination of both strength training as well as the flexibility style training to obviously reap both benefits. So guys, I hope this video kind of gives you guys a little bit more idea about this idea of toning and bulking, and obviously my beliefs as a trainer about how to actually create the right kinds of stimulus for your desired goals. So stay tuned for clip number 2, which just talks about how we can practically apply this and how we can break it down for you guys so that you guys can apply this into your everyday training routine. So any questions or comments, feel free to tag below. Please share this with lots of people if you feel like it will help. I am still in the process of making these, so any feedback is welcome, and yeah, have a happy Wednesday.